Let's turn first to MSNBC political analyst Richard Wolffe, also author of Renegade, The Making of a President. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
What is the focus here right now? Is it the pushback borders at other airports? Is it the indication that intelligence, such as what the NSA knew about al-Qaeda in Yemen, using a Nigerian man for an attack, was not, maybe is not being utilized? Where is the focus right now?
Well, I was speaking to White House folks earlier today, and it's clear the president is still deeply concerned and troubled, even angry at the intelligence lapses. But they see this more as an intelligence lapse more than a situation of airport security faults. So the question here is, why didn't the centralized system of intelligence that was set up after 9/11, why didn't it work? Is this conspiracy or cock-up? Is it a case of the agencies having so much rivalry between them that they were more determined to stymie each other or this centralized system rather than dealing with the terrorist threat? Or was it just there were so many dots no one could connect them because it was just all too random to figure out? Seems that the president is leaning very much towards thinking this was a systemic failure by individuals who maybe had an alternative agenda. The question here is, why wasn't the intelligence directed at countries where al-Qaeda was reconstituting or establishing itself anew? That gets you to a strategic question, which unfortunately the last administration failed to see because it was diverted most classically into Iraq.
To your second point there, and we can, sort of skip the Woody Allen joke about underwear will now be worn on the outside at the airport so we can check. Your second point that you suggested in there, that the administration is looking into perhaps mixed motives, mixed or misplaced priorities. I'm not sure exactly how you phrase that. In terms of what? Getting messages from A to B? Are people thought to have been deliberately withholding information so that the dots could not be connected?
Right. The question is, was this information that was shared? Remember, there was some sharing of information, but it involves the father of this, in the end, a terrorist who walks in to see the CIA officials in a foreign embassy. This is an American embassy in a foreign country. And, that information, was it shared fully? Why wasn't it shared fully? The question there is, again, cock-up or conspiracy. Was there a reason that these agencies were at war with each other that prevented that intelligence from being shared?
Is the implication there that there is at least a possibility that somebody understood how serious this could be and yet withheld information to make some other part of the counterterrorism system look bad?
That has got to be an area that the White House is looking into, and motives can be hard to assess because it's not clear that this person was easily identified as a terrorist, even with the father coming forward saying they had concerns. Was that more of a family concern, or were there enough fingerprints here about the radicalization of this individual to suggest that it should have been taken to a different level, at the very least a security level beyond more than a nominal sharing of information? That's where this inquiry, this internal inquiry for the moment has to go.
Well, certainly not to get too far ahead of what the information the White House doesn't have, and presumably thus you don't have, and certainly I don't have. But that seems to me that what you're describing, at least in theory, is a far greater threat than a guy with explosives on an airplane, whether or not he succeeds in blowing them up.
Well, it's the most important line of defense. I don't know that it's a threat in itself, but you can defend every airport as much as you like. In the end, the most efficient, safest border line for security has got to be human intelligence. There seems to have been plenty of human intelligence in this case.
MSNBC political analyst Richard Wolffe, the author of Renegade, The Making of a President. Great thanks, as always, for your time, and especially for that last point, Richard.
Thank you, Keith.
We wanted to recap the breaking news at this hour as the president convenes his summit tomorrow at the White House to investigate the intelligence failures that led to the failed attempt to blow up an airliner over Detroit on Christmas Day. Our Richard Wolffe is quoting, as you may have heard him earlier in this news hour, sources at the White House who say that the administration is investigating whether or not those intel failures that led Abdul Muttalib onto that flight might have been intentional and not accidental. Wolffe's sources are offering two possibilities here, two hypotheticals, and they are only hypotheticals at this point. One, that this might have been a turf war between intel agencies assigned this nation's counterterrorism responsibilities, or two, and obviously much more ominously, that the information was in some way deliberately withheld from some higher or broader authority to make someone look bad, as implausible and as disturbing as either of those prospects are, that's what Richard Wolff's sources are telling him the White House is investigating tonight. The summit is tomorrow. The president's statement on all of this, perhaps touching on this and perhaps not, will be made at about 4 p.m. Eastern tomorrow afternoon.
Breaking news on the White House investigation into exactly what happened with the Christmas Day botched terror attempt. MSNBC political analyst Richard Wolffe is actually joining us now by phone with that. Richard, I know you've just shared some reporting on Countdown about a potentially very inflammatory development in the Christmas Day terror plot investigation. What can you tell us about that reporting and what else you've been able to learn?
Well, Rachel, this investigation is still very much at the fact-finding stage where the White House is looking at still what happened. It's very preliminary. Obviously, the president has just got back from vacation and just started prepping for his big session tomorrow, which I'm told is still going to focus on things like the screening processes that people face. The question about how intelligence was shared is very much uppermost in the president's mind. He is still, I'm told, very steamed about this whole affair and the failings that led to such a serious breach of security. But it's still very early in the phase of where this investigation is going.
Richard, I believe that I think the reason that your reporting tonight has such an exclamation point on it for so many of us who saw your interview on Countdown, who are thinking about where this might lead, is the prospect not just that intelligence leads that should have been followed weren't followed, or that intelligence dots that should have been connected weren't connected, that there isn't enough communication among the different parts of the American intelligence community. That's important analysis, but not new analysis. What's new and very worrying is the prospect that intelligence was deliberately withheld by one part of the American intelligence community from another, either because of a grudge to make somebody look bad or for any other reason that put petty politics above national security. Is that, in fact, the path that this White House inquiry is going down?
That, I think, is 10 steps ahead of where the White House is right now.
Okay.
I just checked in with White House people again, and look, there's lots of finger-pointing going on in the intelligence community where you have people who are in the center of it all, who are tasked with pulling these things together, who say the information was there and it wasn't flagged up or it wasn't shared adequately. So there is a line of inquiry that goes to the heart of why wasn't this stuff shared adequately. I think the early suspicions inside the White House is that this comes down to human error more than this is some willful withholding. But the questions are being asked, and they're being asked because some people are saying this stuff wasn't shared adequately, and they say it could have been.
MSNBC analyst Richard Wolffe joining us, helping us sort out what's turning into be both fascinating story and a deeply troubling story about America's response to the terror alert or the terror incident on Christmas Day and what we could have pieced together ahead of time. Richard, thanks very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Rachel.